Yeah.
Are you guys out on him?
No, it's just that, we're continuing to have internal conversations because he's still available. And, we're just wondering, when he's going to make a decision. But the fact that he's available, we still have conversations about it.
How do you still try to upgrade this club here? Spring training a week away.
Yeah, we're trying to get a left-hand bat for the outfield. Most of the options are slim to none, but we're still working through it and grinding, to get some left-handed at bats in our outfield.
You said you're having internal conversations about Alex, but have you talked to Boras recently?
No, I have not talked to Boras recently, but we are still having conversations internally, and then I'll leave it at that.
Has Boras talked to Jim recently?
I don't know. Jim has not told me that. I'm sure Jim would have told me if he talked to him, but why, did you hear that?
Jim doesn't talk to me. You've got the scouting eye. What about the way Altuve plays tells you that he could handle left field?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I went outside the other day when he was catching fly balls, and I was just telling the other group that he was running down balls in the gap. He looked like he was having the time of his life. He was like a little kid out there, and his jumps off the bat were really good. And so, with his foot speed, playing left field, I really think he's got a chance of being pretty good. I mean, I'm not kidding. I like what I saw from a purely scouting standpoint. And that's how I view things initially when I first watch it. I'm like, oh, this guy looks good. If I didn't know who he was and I came out there and saw him taking fly balls, I'd have been like, hey, who's that guy? He caught your eye for sure.
How much of a consideration in all this is, just how important he is to you guys offensively, the extra wear that comes with playing the outfield and on the ground?
Yeah, I don't think it's that much of an extra wear other than it's a longer run from the dugout. I played outfield. It gets boring out there after a while. You don't do much. I mean, you wait. You may not get a fly ball for a long time. So I don't see if it was center. There's a little bit more wear for center field because you have to run to both sides, both gaps, or shortstop. But yeah, I don't think it's that much of an extra. I think it's probably going to be. He's probably going to be bored at times.
How's it look throwing wise with him out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easier to throw from the outfield because you get the crow hop and the momentum, where a lot of times on the infield, it's like you throw flat-footed. And so I think his arm will play a little bit better in the outfield because when you get your crow hop and you get your weight behind you, the ball usually comes out a lot better. And so I don't think he'd have problems throwing it. You at least hit the cutoff.
Sorry, how do you replace the depth of losing Presley? Because it seems like it's pretty thin after when you get him out. You already had Abreu throwing almost half the games last year.
Yeah, so Abreu will pitch more in the 8th inning this year, and so he'll probably pitch in games where we're ahead, or probably tied. And so last year we used him a little bit more than that and kind of wore him down some. But I think our bullpen's still going to be pretty good. We have Ort, who really showed out well last year. We have King, who threw the ball very well. Scott, who threw the ball very well. We have Whitley, who we're probably going to get a real good look at in spring training. We got guys like Van Way who can come up and do a pretty good job. And so I think we're going to know a lot more in spring training when we see these guys pitch. But I think we got a real good chance to have a strong bullpen, and we may be able to do it internally, which is a good thing.
Sorry. Rotation-wise, you guys were excited to add Wesneski, and you said maybe a few tweaks here and there. Have you already seen some of those tweaks and some of the side sessions already being put to work?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a few sides from Wesneski. I believe in our pitching guys. You guys have heard me say it all the time. I think we have some of the best pitching people in baseball. And there's no doubt in my mind, particularly after seeing what our guys did with Kikuchi, that they could take a guy like Wesneski and really get him to turn a corner. And so I have full confidence that, they'll make some adjustments. And, we feel good about him, at the back end of our rotation. And so we still have young guys like Busto Gordon, that we're going to give a look at in spring training. So I feel really good about our rotation. I feel really good. All of our guys are healthy and doing well. So that's the most important. You got to be healthy.
You've talked about Cam Smith. Defensively, where do you envision him? Do you see him more as an infielder, outfielder, or do you think he can go both ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was signed as a third baseman, so we'll give him a look at third. But I'm not out on seeing what it looks like in the outfield. If he can go to right field and see what that looks like. I think he's very athletic. When I went down to camp a couple weeks ago, he was moving around great at third base, and so he's very athletic. And sometimes these guys will add some versatility to your roster when they're that young and still, pretty athletic. So
We talked about the left-handed options on the market are pretty non-existent. Who internally do you look at as maybe someone that can impact the club as a left-handed? Is it Melton or is it Trammell? Like what do you think of the options you have internally?
Yeah, I mean, Melton would be a big-time addition to our roster if he comes into camp and he's playing well. As I said, I'm not afraid to go with the kids. I don't want to put any pressure on them, but if a young player like that can come in and make an impact, I think that left-hand bat with that power and that defense and his speed could be really special for our team. And I think he's on the right trajectory to get there at some point, but we'll see what it looks like in spring training.
So, when you say you guys are still having internal conversations about Bregman, would you characterize this as an active pursuit for the organization? Is something that you guys are actively pursuing?
Yeah, I would characterize as we're still talking about him, and I'll leave it at that. We're having good, clear conversations about Bregman.
For Lance and Luis, they still tracking to be a little bit after the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fired up about Lance. I mean, he's throwing some sides. He feels really good. He's up to 90. There's no discomfort, no pain, and so we're fired up about what he's going to look like this spring. And we gotta temper it a little bit and let it play out. But we're definitely excited about how Lance looks. And as far as Garcia, he's throwing flat ground with no issues. No need to rush him because our starting five is strong. But we'll allow him to build up in the right way so we can prevent any injuries.
Is the potential delay to come back, is that more of just, Lance almost hadn't pitched in 2 years, Luis about a year and a half, just the layoff more than the recovery?
Yeah, I just think you have to build these guys up. Once you get 6 months off, it's the same thing as 2 years. You have to be built back up, and then you just can't rush it. And so, particularly if you've had setbacks, you have to continue to slowly build them up, and that's the big key. And Lance, I feel like from the reports I'm getting, is on a good pace right now. And so the fact that he's off the mound throwing 90 is very exciting.
What do you like about Gordon and Gusto?
Yeah, well, Gusto's got power stuff. He's been up to 96. He's a big-time competitor. He's a big physical dude who could log innings for you, and I think that's what you need, at the back end of your rotation. And so, we feel really good about him. He's got good breaking stuff, and he had a pretty good year in AAA. And it's the same for Gordon. Gordon, didn't throw as many innings in AAA, but came back and was good last year. And so we see him as a very good left-hand starter, that could also pitch at the back end. And, depending on what happens with the rotation, you could see either one of those guys at some point.
Outside of, Garcia and McCullers, how are you guys just looking health-wise?
Very good. I mean, the reports I'm getting, all of our starters are healthy, our bullpen guys are healthy, they're all out throwing, and so, feel really good. Now, we got to get into spring training, that's when you really get tested. But for right now, everyone's pretty healthy.
Blubaugh is on the 40-man roster, but does he have any chance?
So Blubaugh, he's another one of our depth starters. He's not on the roster, as you mentioned, but he's another one of our depth starters. There's an outside chance, depending on what happens, with our rotation, we could potentially see him. But, he threw well in AAA last year. He's got a really good arm, and we're excited about his future as well. He's not on the roster, but we'll get a good look at him in spring training. But at some point, depending on what happens to our rotation, last year we had all those guys hurt, so we were kind of forced to, bring up some of the young kids. But if anything happens in the rotation, you could see Blubaugh as well. He's another one of our starter depth guys.